Ranger captain Jacob Trouba wins the Mark Messier Leadership Award, and did he just guarantee a Game 6 win? Plus, could Chris Kreider be in any danger of missing Game 6?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1079 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. I want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So yes, Jacob Trouba, it was announced just last night that he has won the 2024 Mark Messier Leadership Award. There was a segment on TV last night where Mark Messier is in studio. Jacob Trouba is not there with him, but he, called in, zoomed in, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, there was, camera set up at his place, but he talked with Mark Messier for a little while and obviously accepted the award. And I'll admit this is kind of some very interesting, intriguing timing for Jacob Trouba, the Ranger captain, to be winning this award right now. I mean, it feels like such a random time to be giving out an award like this, just in general, regardless of, where the Rangers are, or if there was a recipient from another team. We're in the second round of the playoffs and getting toward the end of the second round of the playoffs. And here we are with an award being given out. So that was kind of interesting. And the other reason it's interesting is that this award is being given out to the Ranger captain at a time where that leadership is definitely needed, because obviously the Rangers got up 3-0. They've lost the last two. It's a series. It's very competitive. There's two excellent teams going back and forth, and the Rangers need one more win to close this thing out. So it's interesting for that reason as well. And Trouba had some really interesting comments, and we're going to get to those in just a little bit. But for the time being, I'm sure that, Ranger fans, fans of other teams, fans of the Penguins, fans of the Canes, fans of just hockey in general, I'm sure everybody's reacting very rationally, very level-headed to Jacob Trouba winning the Leadership Award. I saw some comments floating around social media, so I'll go ahead and just make the joke for everybody. Oh, yeah, what's he the leader of? Leading with his elbow? There was a little bit of that going on social media, and that's fine. But I do think when these awards are given out, it's very important to understand, what the criteria is and what this is made to represent. And if you look at the verbiage of the Mark Messier Leadership Award, this is what it says. It goes to a player that exemplifies great leadership to... Okay, let's try that again. It goes to the player that exemplifies great leadership qualities to his team on and off the ice, and who plays a leading role in his community growing the game of hockey. Now, that second part, nobody can take that away from Jacob Trouba. I know he has his critics, certainly even among Ranger fans, and definitely from some other fan bases as well. But Jacob Trouba, he has a long and, well-established history of being a very charitable player. Him and his wife founded the Trouba Creative Expressions Arts Program, which basically, I'm just going to read it right from the website itself, which offers art services to adults with epilepsy and seizures through the Epilepsy Foundation of Metropolitan New York. So there's that. And obviously, part of that is, he does art and then auctions it off with the proceeds going to benefit, those in need. And he also does a lot of work with the Garden of Dreams Foundation. A lot of Rangers do. We've seen a lot of that over the years from the Ranger players, which is awesome. Garden of Dreams Foundation is committed to bringing life-changing opportunities to young people facing illness, financial challenges, or dealing with the death or injury of a family member in uniform. And at the end of last season, Jacob Trouba presented to Isaiah Marquez Green, who was a survivor of the 2012 Sandy Hook tragedy in Connecticut, lost his sister in that tragedy, presented Isaiah Marquez Green with a scholarship to help fund law school. So he does a lot. He has helped raise more than $160,000 for his own foundation, as well as the Garden of Dreams Foundation. So regardless of what you might think about Jacob Trouba, and for sure, he has his critics, once again, both among Ranger fans and other fan bases. You cannot take away a single thing that this guy does off the ice. He is one of the good guys away from the ice, and I think certainly a very worthy recipient of this award. Regarding the award itself, I do find it kind of funny that there's an award that's given out annually by the NHL that's just given out by Mark Messier. There's one vote. Mark Messier decides who it goes to, and he gives the award to that person. And just to put this to bed right away, because you'll see people talking, and oh yeah, of course, Mark Messier, the former Ranger, gives it to a New York Ranger. Well, in the existence of this award, it's basically only been given out to one New York Ranger. This award has existed since the 2006-2007 season. The reason I say basically is because that first season, it was actually given out on a monthly basis, and Brendan Shanahan, who was on the Rangers at the time, was one of the monthly recipients of the award. But that's it. That's the only other New York Ranger that has ever won this award. It's been a yearly award ever since that first season, and Jacob Trouba now the first Ranger to win said award. And as I mentioned a second ago, obviously Trouba's leadership skills, they're going to be tested going forward. I'm not saying that what has happened in games 4 and 5 and whatever's going to happen going forward here all falls on the captain, but when you're the captain of a team, it just comes with the territory. There's going to be a lot of eyes on you, and when times get tough, I think, the fans and the players alike, everybody kind of looks to the captain to right the ship a little bit, and when you're wearing that C, like I said, it does come with the territory, and obviously the Rangers are being tested right now, and Jacob Trouba's got to be one of the guys leading the way to get them out of this this situation that they're in, shall we say. And hopefully that's exactly what happens on Thursday in Game 6 on the road. Big test for the Rangers, and they've passed every other test this season. Hopefully they pass this one as well. But I mentioned just a minute ago that Jacob Trouba, I kind of questioned, did he guarantee a win in Game 6? So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. An interesting comment that he made as his interview with Mark Messier was wrapping up. We'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about some lineup decisions for Game 6, including the status of Chris Kreider and whether or not he's going to be ready to go when Game 6 rolls around. And like I said, we'll do all that fun stuff in just a second. We just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and much, much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here for the everydayers. Big thanks to you guys, as always, for tuning in, especially, during this playoff run here, and some ups and downs already. Long way to go here, and hopefully, like we said, the Rangers do close things out in Game 6, and in our next episode, our 5th and final episode of this week, we're going to be breaking down whatever happens in Game 6. Hopefully a Ranger win. I mean, what else will we possibly talk about but Game 6? Definitely looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing the Rangers get back on the ice tomorrow night, Thursday night. Just for context, it is Wednesday as I'm recording this, but that's then for right now. Let's go ahead and talk about Jacob Trouba and him basically, borderline guaranteeing a win in Game 6 for the Rangers. Now, he didn't use the word guarantee, and contrary to popular belief, because a lot of people, they'll see this and they'll compare it to 1994. It was 30 years ago. We've seen, floating around on social media and even just in our everyday conversations with other Ranger fans, all the comparisons being made to this year and what happened 30 years ago, all the different things that happened 30 years ago in 1994 when the Rangers won the Cup. Like I said, though, Trouba did not use the word guarantee. And again, contrary to popular belief, Mark Messier actually did not use the word guarantee 30 years ago either. The story and the legend is that he guaranteed a win, which he kind of did. He just didn't use the word guarantee. The exact quote, I had to look this up today, but the exact quote from Messier back in the day, Rangers down 3-2 in the Eastern Conference Final, 1994, facing elimination on the road against the Devils. This is what he said before that game. We know we have to win it, we can win it, and we are going to win it. So again, he didn't use the word guarantee, but for all intents and purposes, that's basically a guarantee in a roundabout way. He just stopped short of using the actual word. Trouba, when he was talking to Mark Messier, didn't really, it wasn't really a whole lot different from what Messier said all those years ago. And this interview was wrapping up. You know, it's a relatively short interview. It lasted just a little bit longer than 3 minutes on TV. I mean, they only have so much time anyway, so you know it's going to be a short interview. But basically, Messier is saying goodbye to Jacob Trouba, wishing him well and all that good stuff. And this is what Jacob Trouba had to say right before, you know, the session ended there, the interview ended. This is what Trouba says to Mark Messier. He says, "Thank you. Looking forward to going into Carolina and getting a win in Carolina. I think that's the belief that our group has in each other. And moving forward, I think we're looking forward to the challenge and we're excited to get to Carolina." And that's, you know, he's saying we're going to go down there and get a win. And I like that. And honestly, the comparisons between this and what Mark Messier said, and I think the motives for what each Ranger captain said, they're there. You know, there's definitely some symmetry there. Messier, after he guaranteed that win in game 6, and obviously the Rangers, you know, they win game 6, he gets the hat trick. They win game 7 in double overtime. They go on to win the Stanley Cup. Mostly everybody knows that story. If you don't, you know, just go ahead and go on YouTube and find every video you can on the 1994 Rangers, because it really is storybook stuff. But again, Messier's motive for doing that, and he said as much in the interview after that game, right after that game 6, the guarantee game, and in years that have, you know, come and gone since then, his motive for saying that was basically just to, you know, rally the troops a little bit, make sure that they were going to go out there and play confident and play inspired hockey and have the belief that the Rangers would go in there and get the job done. Now, it's a little bit different between Messier and Trouba because, of course, you know, Messier and the Rangers back in 94, they were facing elimination. This year, it's the opposite because the Rangers are still up 3-2, but there's a similar situation. You know, the Rangers are, you know, they're up against it right now. They're facing some adversity, to be sure. They got to figure out a way to get a win. And Jacob Trouba, once again, did not use the word guarantee, but he said, looking forward, this is the exact quote again, looking forward to going into Carolina and getting a win in Carolina. So that's where things stand. I really, you know, I like the fact that he's speaking that confidently. I know there were some Ranger fans that, you know, maybe weren't exactly thrilled with the tone that some of the Ranger players took after game 5. You know, I know some people took some issue with Chris Kreider after that game because he said something about, you know, being up 3-2 and being in a good position. You'd like to see a little bit more, whether it's Kreider or Trouba or anybody else, of them saying, you know what, this was not good enough. We got a little bit of that from Vincent Trocheck in his post-game comments, but for the most part, the Rangers, it felt like they were kind of just, oh, you know, well, we're still up, we're in a good spot, and this and that, which I can't kill them for either, because you certainly don't want to make it sound like you're panicking or anything along those lines, and you want to maintain your confidence and just kind of, you know, roll with the ups and downs that are inevitably going to come during any team's playoff run. And I think the Rangers mostly did that. So I get where they're coming from. But I do also understand, you know, frustration from certain fans that would have liked to have seen the Rangers be a little bit tougher on themselves in their post-game comments. So it's a delicate balance for sure. But I think anybody that, you know, maybe wasn't thrilled with the tone that the Rangers took after game 5, I mean, with Trouba saying we're looking forward to going and getting a win in Carolina, I mean, tell me that even as a fan, you don't want to just run through a brick wall right now, right? It's an exciting situation to be in. It's tense, obviously. And again, this has become a series. There's no two ways about it. And the Rangers are going to have to really battle to be able to get one more win against the Canes, which is all they need. But I think, you know, Jacob Trouba going there and saying that, you know, we're going to go in there and looking forward to go there and get a win, that's good stuff. And I think that's probably what this team needs right now. And I think that's the kind of tone that Trouba probably needed to take. He very easily could have just said bye to Mark Messier, and that would have been the end of it. He could have hit the end call button on his Zoom call or whatever it is and just been on his way. But he slipped that in there at the very end. You know, Messier didn't even ask him a question. He just kind of threw that in there, and that's where Trouba went. And good on him for doing that. I like the confidence. And as a captain, you have to show leadership. And maybe Trouba's having some fun with the 1994 comparisons too, because obviously they're there. And again, the fact that it was exactly 30 years ago, that kind of just ups the ante a little bit. You know, that kind of, you know, it wouldn't be quite the same if 1994 was 27 years ago or 33 years ago. The fact that it's 30 years ago, right on the nose, that just makes it a little bit more fun, I think, for everybody involved. And obviously, Jacob Trouba, you know, taking a little bit of a page out of Mark Messier's book right while he's sitting there talking to the former Ranger captain. To me, that's good stuff. And I think, you know, you make comments like that, it's the sign of somebody that certainly is not panicking and certainly is still confident in his team. And now Jacob Trouba is going to have to bring it. And when he does, he might actually end up having a bigger role for the Rangers than he's had in recent games, because it's looking like, if Wednesday's practice is any indication, that Jacob Trouba might be moving back into a top 4 role going forward and going into game 6. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some other big lineup decisions that the New York Rangers are facing. And we are also going to talk about Chris Kreider and the possibility of him missing game 6. Where do things stand there? And what are the Ranger options if he's not able to go? Also going to get into some comments from Peter Laviolette. So, yep, going to do all that in just a second. All right, definitely want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and even easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. Save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, let's go and keep everything rolling here. And some news from practice, that being that, Chris Kreider, to begin with, we should take this from the top here. So Kreider did not participate, it does not seem, at practice today, because you had Blake Wheeler in his spot on the top line. You had Blake Wheeler at left wing, Mika Zibanejad at center, Jack Roslovic at right wing. And at first you're thinking like, maintenance day, and Blake Wheeler's just kind of standing in there for Kreider. But Laviolette was asked about, after practice, if there was any concern about Chris Kreider missing game 6. And this is what he had to say. I'm hoping that today was just a normal playoff maintenance. So basically a non-answer. It's coach speak, and it's one of those things that you just kind of have to deal with it. Laviolette's not the only one that does it. There's obviously a lot of coaches around this league that play things close to the vest, because you don't really gain anything by revealing what your lineup is going to look like in the next game. And, you could debate how much of an advantage it is if the Canes aren't sure if, Rempe or Brodzinski is going to play, or they're not sure if this guy's injured, or this might be happening, or this defenseman might be with that defenseman. But again, there's nothing to gain by announcing it. So that's what he did here, kind of a non-answer. And, my gut instinct with an answer like this tells me that Kreider probably will play. I obviously hope that he does. Look, I know Kreider has his critics. I totally get it. There's times where he does come under fire from Ranger fans, and there's times where, as we've discussed, it is at least somewhat warranted. That being said, this Ranger team is not a better team with Chris Kreider not being in the lineup. Kreider's work on the penalty kill alone should be enough to let everybody know. I mean, take away everything he does offensively, take away his role as, obviously, kind of the elder statesman of this Ranger team. He's basically seen it all, been through a lot of ups and downs. Just look at the penalty kill alone. I mean, what are they now? I think the stat was like 54 of their last 57 they've successfully killed off the Ranger penalty kill. And I mean, he's not the only guy that has a hand in that, but he's out there on a lot of penalty kills and obviously doing a nice job there. And one other thing that I got to point out here is that if Kreider does miss game 6 and the Rangers win the game anyway, it does not mean that the Rangers are a better team without Kreider in the lineup. I can't believe I have to say this, but there will be some people that make that claim. There will be. And it is possible for our team to be missing one of its better players and get the win anyway. But again, my hope, and the hope of other people, even the people that aren't the biggest Chris Kreider fans, my hope is that your hope is that he's in the lineup, because obviously the Rangers are a better team when he's in there than when he's not. And if he's not in there, if he can't go in game 6, we'll see what happens. The Rangers will have some discussions to have at that point, some decisions to make. If he doesn't go, first of all, Filip Chytil, he's kind of an X factor here, right? Because he plays in the one game. He played in game 3. Can't go in game 4 because, obviously he had an illness, and we haven't seen him in the lineup since. And the initial belief when they said that he was ill was that, it had something to do with his concussions. The Rangers have since said that it is not related to his concussions. Something else that's kind of interesting, though, is the Rangers are repeatedly not making Filip Chytil available to the media, which is kind of curious. I get the feeling, though, it's one of those things where, we're talking about the lineup decisions and Peter Laviolette not revealing any lineup decisions. It might be one of those things where, the players know what the lineup is going to be for Game 6, but they've been told, don't mention it, don't talk about it to any of the reporters or anything like that, and they're just going to play it close to the vest. And if that's the case, Filip Chytil, if he's in the locker room, he's going to have a lot of reporters going near him, and they're going to try to find out, understandably so, what the lineup is going to be, and if he's going to be in the lineup for Game 6. Are you ready for Game 6? How are you feeling? This, that, and the other things. So it's one of those things where it's probably not that big of a deal. But I get the feeling it's just a case of the Rangers trying to play everything regarding their lineup decisions close to the vest. So Chytil's the X factor. If Chytil's healthy, he's got to go into the lineup for somebody. If Chytil and Kreider are both healthy, then Chytil probably goes in for Matt Rempe. And you'll see a situation where Chytil's on the third line, Will Cooley gets bumped down to the fourth line, and that's how the Rangers go. Now, if Chytil can't go, and let's say Kreider can't go either, then I think you're looking at a situation where it could be Blake Wheeler. Like if he's cleared, and I know that may not get a lot of Ranger fans excited, but if he's cleared and he's ready to go, and he has recently shed the red non-contact jersey in practice, so Wheeler might be the guy. And if that's the case, then I would say, and again, whatever your feelings are on Wheeler, let's also throw this out there. Give this guy credit, okay? He's 37 years old, had that devastating injury. Nobody thought he'd be even an option of being an option at this point. We kept hearing it would take a really deep playoff run for him to even have a chance. And, it sounds like he's at least an option that's on the table for the Rangers. But if Chytil can't go, Kreider can't go, you might be looking at a situation where Blake Wheeler steps into the lineup. And if that's the case, then I think you put Wheeler out there. This is a tall order. You could put Blake Wheeler out there on the top line with Mika Zibanejad and Jack Roslovic. The big thing that I don't want to do, pretty much regardless of what the lineup is break up the Lafreniere, Panarin, and Trocheck line. They've just been too good this season. A little bit quiet the last couple of games, but the whole Ranger team has been quiet the last couple of games. And I think, they've got better hockey in them than what they showed in Game 5. The whole team, not just the Panarin line. The other option you could do here, depending on who's in or out of the lineup, you could go with, this is if Kreider doesn't play, a top line of Panarin, Mika, and Lafreniere. We've seen the Rangers do that from time to time, but again, I'm just not the biggest fan of splitting up the Panarin line and also stretching yourself kind of thin in the other spots in the lineup, the other lines. So I don't think I would go that route. The one thing for me is I got to leave that Panarin line together, and we'll see if the Rangers feel the same way. The other option, while we're just kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks here, if Kreider doesn't go and Blake Wheeler does, maybe since Wheeler's just getting going again and you don't want to give him top line minutes, maybe you could put Blake Wheeler on the third line and give it a shot with Will Cooley on the top line. I don't think that's as crazy as it sounds. Will Cooley's one of those guys that obviously there's some upside there, and somebody that's had a really nice rookie season for this Ranger team gives them a little bit of thump on that top line. Mika and Roslovic, not known for being the most physical players. Maybe Cooley can step in there, do some of the dirty work, dig some pucks free for those guys and set them up for some opportunities. We'll see. They've definitely got some options. But again, the biggest thing for me, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Kreider can go. And on top of that, I'm hoping that Filip Chytil can go. We'll see. Obviously, it's kind of a mystery right now, so all we can really do is just kind of guess, but we'll see what happens. And obviously, again, we've talked about this before. It's nice that the Rangers at least have some options. There's other years where options were few and far between. But while the rebuild was going on, we didn't even know how they were going to fill out a regular season lineup. Now, of course, they've got a lot of different guys that they can go to. I didn't even mention Brodzinski. He can obviously step in there and play on the fourth line. And he actually was out there on the fourth line at practice a little bit earlier today. So there's all that. And then we also have to shift our attention to the defense pairings. This is the other big news from Ranger practice. They have gone back to the defense pairings that they went with for the majority of the season. So, of course, that's Fox and Lindgren together. They haven't touched that pairing all season. Not really. I mean, maybe like a game here and there or an in-game adjustment every once in a blue moon. But for the most part, those two have pretty much been joined at the hip. That's your top pairing. They've put K'Andre Miller back with Jacob Trouba, and they have put Erik Gustafsson back with Braden Schneider. So mixed feelings here. Miller and Trouba definitely struggled at times this season. But, when you look at all the winning the Rangers did this season, best record in the NHL, a lot of those wins came with these 6 defensemen and these 3 combinations as far as what the pairings are. Miller and Trouba played together a lot this season, and it wasn't all bad. It did get to a point there, though, where it felt like a change had to be made. And the other idea I had here, as far as like why do this now and why go back to the pairings here, and I'm not even saying I agree with that. We'll get to that in just a second. But I think the logic here, and I can't speak for Peter Laviolette, but you put these pairings back together, it's probably because Jacob Trouba is obviously one of their leaders. He is the captain. And the Rangers, they've lost the last 2 games. And I get the feeling Laviolette and the coaching staff, they probably feel like, you know what? Let's go with our top guys. Let's go with our big name players. Let's go with the guys that we've counted on to shoulder the load for pretty much the entire season. And let's make sure all those guys in a prominent spot, and let's let them go out there and settle it. We talked about in game 4 how Jacob Trouba, his ice time just basically shrank. It was the least amount of ice time that he got with the Rangers all season, other than a game that he got hurt and the other game where he got into the line brawl with the Devils and everybody got kicked out of the game. Other than those 2 games, though, least amount of ice time that Trouba has gotten all season was in game 4 of this series. And it was also his career playoff low, including every playoff game he's ever played with the Rangers and the Jets. His time on the ice went back up in game 5. It went back up to 1838. But I just get the feeling that considering the situation the Rangers are in, they want to give their top guys the chance to settle this thing. And putting Jacob Trouba back into the top 4 could be a way to do that. One other thing, too, is that Braden Schneider had a rough play against Stahl. And I know a lot of people were criticizing Roslovic on this play, and I get that because Roslovic basically did a drive-by in the neutral zone, not really sure what he was doing or where he was going. That allowed the pass to be made to Stahl. But Schneider didn't play this well either. He stepped up to Stahl initially, didn't seem like he knew whether he wanted to body him or go for the puck, and kind of just didn't do anything. And Stahl went around him, went to the net, and was able to score the game-tying goal. So a rough play there for Schneider, and maybe that has something to do with it too. Bump Schneider back down to the 3rd pairing. Can't say for sure, but I don't know. I feel like I would probably stick with Miller and Schneider and Gustafsson and Trouba. But the more I'm thinking about this, the more I'm kind of talking myself into this. Give your captain the chance to settle things in a very important Game 6. The other debate that Ranger fans are having is, do you throw Zach Jones out there? Can he step in place of Erik Gustafsson? I thought about this too, and I think certainly there's a case to be made for that. But I feel like at this point, it's Game 6. The playoffs are obviously well underway here. Zach Jones has not played in a while. Now, on one hand, he would have fresh legs, right? And that's not the worst thing to have in this situation in a playoff series. But Gustafsson has been out there for the entire series, and I feel like, again, the Rangers have gone with the 6 defensemen and the 3 pairings that they're about to go with, or seemingly about to go with in Game 6. I think I'd lean slightly toward just sticking with that and seeing if these guys can settle it. So, give Gustafsson another game here. I think, maybe in the next series, if the Rangers can get there, you can re-examine this whole thing. But you're right in the middle of a playoff series, and, things have gotten a little bit dicey here. I don't know that that's the best situation for Zach Jones to be thrown back out there. You could always limit his ice time, I'm sure. Jones or Gustafsson, probably either one of them would end up with the least amount of ice time for any Ranger defenseman, although Gustafsson had a good amount of ice time in the last one. But, I think to me, I'm still leaning just a little bit toward Erik Gustafsson and keeping things the same there. That's pretty much it. We've kind of gone through the whole gauntlet here of every, possible scenario regarding who's in the lineup, who's injured and who's not, and who should be playing with who and all that good stuff. So you guys let me know in the comment section. Give me your ideal line combinations and your ideal defense pairings for Game 6. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how the Rangers look to play it. But yeah, that's pretty much a wrap on all the decisions that the Rangers have to make regarding their lineup for Game 6. So puck drops on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Definitely looking forward to that. Also, just wanted to mention the Hartford Wolfpack going to start their best of 5 in the round of 8 with Game 1 at Hershey also on Thursday night. So looking forward to that as well. But obviously, all eyes are going to be on the Rangers, and let's just keep our fingers crossed that they can get this thing done. And the next time we talk, we're talking about a Ranger win and this team heading on to the Eastern Conference Finals. So fingers crossed on that to be sure. Go ahead and break out whatever superstition you have, whatever ritual you have to do before a Ranger playoff game. And try to stay positive, keep the faith, and Let's just keep our fingers crossed. The Rangers come out and play the brand of hockey that they're more than capable of playing in Game 6. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.